Hi everyone, you're back with me, JD from Studio 2105 and MixStream Online. You're watching another episode of Weekly Update Wednesdays, and we're now coming up to episode 24. If you're new to the channel, a warm welcome to you. Also, a big thank you and a shout out to all the patrons who help to support the channel financially. A very big thank you. If you haven't done so, do head on down, click on the subscribe button, and also tap the notification bell so that you'll be updated every time I upload a new video. Do sign up for the email list. Head on down to bit.ly/MixStreamOnline. Okay, the link is going to be falling down here below. Sign up for the email list and then you get lots of free stuff. Okay, for example, my personal snare drum samples and also my reverb IR library. Do also, right, if you want to support the channel, right, financially as well, do consider signing up to become a patron. Head on down to this website, www.patreon.com/studio2105, and sign up to become a patron today, right? Signing up, right, you get special perks, you get special benefits, right? You get, a big shout out and a big thank you and credit on every video that I put out there, all right? Not only that, you get one-on-one tutorial, mentoring sessions with me, you get exclusive content, you get discount codes as well that you can use towards any of the studio services here at Studio 2105. So, for example, if you sign up to become a VIP patron, right, I give out discount codes which you can use, right? For example, if you want to record here, if you want to book some studio time, you want to book, right, for example, mixing, you want to do any sort, basically anything here, right? And you can get a pretty good discount. Alright, last week was week 3 of the Direct Access Music Production Workshop, and this time around we finished up the guitars and we covered lots and lots more other topics as well. Okay, so it was really cool. This weekend we're going to move on to week 4, which will be the vocal recording. Right, the song, alright, that I'm going to be featured is a brand new song from Violet Remains. Okay, the title is called In Vain. So the song is really coming out great, and really looking forward and excited to meet the rest of the students this coming weekend. Now, for those of you who could not make it for this workshop in person, right, the videos will be made available really soon. Okay, for more info on how to access the videos, easiest way, alright, sign up to the mailing list. Okay, sign up to the email list and then you'll be informed and updated when we put out the videos. Okay, you could also, right, another good way to sort of follow the updates of regarding the workshop is to follow the Direct Access official Instagram page. Okay, link is going to be down here below. If you follow the Instagram page, right, the news, right, updates, some behind the scenes sneak peek videos as well of the workshop sessions, you can also check it out and follow, right? A couple more updates. Some new music has been out. So the first one I want to mention, right, is the band Dewata Raya. They have just recently released their brand new single, Masa dan Rasa. Incidentally, this song, right, was featured on one of the episodes of MixStream. This one had a significance because this one was like the longest ever MixStream episode. I think running close to like 6.5 hours. Very cool sounding song, right? They call themselves like a progressive folk rock band, so do check it out, right? Their new single is out now on all the major digital streaming platforms, for example, Spotify, etc. Link as well, okay, it's going to be down in the description, right, below. Do check it out and listen to the song. Alright, another exciting new piece of music that's come out of Studio 2105, right? This is by solo singer-songwriter Rez Zawi and his debut single, Kau Aku Tinggalkan. Now, so this song was produced by Afiq, right, our very own Afiq PB, and recorded here and mixed at Studio 2005. Mastering was done by the legendary and the veteran mastering engineer Fauzi Mazuki. He did an awesome job on the track. So you can check out the official music video. Link is going to be down here. It's going to be floating around somewhere. click on it, go and check the video out, okay? All right, and support our local music. All right, and now to the part of the video which everyone's waiting for. Well, hopefully, okay? The question and answer session. And this week's featured question is about drum sample replacement. What is drum sample replacement? I've watched a few episodes of MixStream where you demonstrate the process briefly. Will there be a tutorial video coming soon? And the answer to the last bit of your question is yes. I have in fact just put out a brand new tutorial video right here on this channel just a couple of days ago, right? You can check it out, right, on my channel, right? I sort of demonstrate how I do drum sample replacement using a combination of Steven Slate's Trigger 2 and also the SSD5 sampler, right? The sample library from Steven Slate drums. Okay, so check it out. The link to that tutorial video is going to be down in the description below. It's also going to be floating around somewhere up here, okay? Now let me give you a little bit of a background, right, on what drum sample replacement is. So I was first introduced to the world of drum sample replacement by my mentor, mixer producer Greg Henderson, who at that time was producing my band's first album, right, way back in like 2001. So it was an amazing tool where you could, in the best and the most ideal situations and scenarios, you could enhance the sound of a recorded live drums, right? You could really enhance it, you could change it and manipulate in such a way that was never possible before. You could layer, even replace like drum hits, say for instance the kick and the snare, right, and do lots and lots of other creative stuff as well, okay? Now, back then what we used was a freeware drum trigger called the KT drum trigger, which is I think still available today, and it's still a pretty awesome plugin, right, for what it does and for how old it is, okay? I'll leave the link to that plugin somewhere in the description below so you can check it out. It is a freely available piece of software out there. In the recording and mixing process, and especially the latter, I'd like to think of any process or technique as either being corrective or creative. Now, those of you who've watched my episodes of MixStream would always hear me refer to that, right? Especially when I talk about vocals, right? And when I describe my vocal mixing chain. And the same thought process can be applied to drum sample replacement. There are two situations which I can think of that come into play, right? Which would require some drum sample replacement. Now, on the first one, right? The corrective process. Now, while it should be always the goal, but it should always be every engineer's goal to capture the best possible recording. Now, there are some situations where that may not be possible, and sometimes it's not really the fault of the engineer, or it's not the fault, or it's not down to because of the engineer's lack of skills or anything. But sometimes it can be because down to equipment. It can be down to budgetary reasons as well. So here's one of the factors. A poor sounding drum kit. Now, so there's a saying that goes, and you've heard me say it countless times, many times here on this channel. It starts with the source, okay? And this is especially true for drums. Now, I cannot emphasize, right, further the importance of a well-tuned, good sounding kit, right? Because there's no amount of expensive microphones and outboard gear that you can throw at this project and you can throw at a recording if the drum kit itself sounds bad. If you have like old worn out drum heads, weird resonances due to like improper tuning, it's not tuned properly, or even worse, it's not even tuned at all sometimes, okay? Even down to maybe badly maintained hardware, okay? So all of that's going to give you, right, kind of inferior results, okay? Right, it's not going to give you the best results out there. Now, here's a very important thing. Note, I did not say, right, that it has to be expensive drums, right? It's not necessary that you've got to go out and purchase the most expensive and, record on the most expensive custom drum kit out there. The important thing here is condition, right? Condition, not the cost. So even if you have an affordable kind of an entry-level kit, it can deliver pretty decent results if well maintained, right? So here's the important thing. if it's well maintained, you have fresh, properly tuned heads, okay, which, all right, now leads me to point 2, okay, we're still on the corrective side of things. Number 2, an inconsistent drummer. Okay, so when we refer to the word source, right, it's not only the instrument that affects the outcome, but more importantly, the player themselves. I have a short story to tell you. So I used to do a lot of drum recording and drum miking workshops with Peter Lau, okay? So he's a good friend of mine. He's a great session drummer, right? And also one of my favorite music educators out there. Now, he once told me a story of his early days, of playing back in like clubs and in bars. So he complained like every night, about how lousy the drums were, how it made him sound bad. So one day, there was a guest band that came in, and the drummer for that band was Louis Pragasam. He's a legendary Malaysian drummer, okay? He's played not only for local, he's played for international acts as well. So Louis Pragasam dropped by the club, alright, just to play a set, right? A guest set one night. So he got behind that lousy drum kit, that bad, awful sounding drum kit, tuned it, played a little bit. When he started playing, suddenly the drum kit sounded awesome, right? So it's a story, right? To that kind of sticks with me right until this day. So now, great equipment's not going to make a lousy drummer sound good, okay? But a great drummer will make even like a cheap drum kit, okay, sound great. But of course, bear in mind, you need to tune it, right? You need to check and you make sure that it's at least in decent condition. When an inexperienced drummer will tend to be a little bit inconsistent with their playing dynamics. Some kicks, right? Some of the snare hits being too soft, some being too loud. The tone is a little bit inconsistent because of of how the angle of the sticks, where they hit on the on the snare or on the tom, right? If you don't hit it like in the right spot, right in the center, right, then you get weird. Every time you hit it, you get a different sound, right? It rings differently. It gets a different amount of overtones. There's not enough attack and all that. So, right. That happens sometimes with an inexperienced and a new drummer. So now, I'm not saying that every hit has to be perfect, right? If you want to do that, hey, go get a drum machine and program, okay? So some natural dynamics, right, is vital to a groovy rhythm, right? After all, live drums is about the human touch. But having an inconsistent performance, okay, isn't likely to provide a solid rhythmic foundation, right? And you need that to really drive a song forward. Okay, now going to the second aspect of drum sample replacement, creative. Okay, so now we've talked about the corrective side of things. Let's talk about the creative side of things, okay? So here's where drum samples are great because it allows us to enhance the performance, okay? Right. So it allows us to enhance what we hopefully has been a good recording, a good capture, a good accurate recording of a great performance by a great drummer. So now, when we work with, let's say, like modern, very dense, heavy rock tracks, okay, it's very hard to make the kick and the snare punch through, right? Because you have layers and walls of bass and guitars and all that, right? So in this kind of situations, drum samples really help to achieve that modern rock drum sound, okay? And again, back to earlier, as I said, it helps to drive the song, okay? Now, a second point, right? Samples are great, okay, creatively because it allows you to replace, sometimes even layer with drum sounds which are different from what was recorded. If you want to layer, like I say, a deep, fat snare, right? Or even, let's say, an 808, all right, on top of the original. Or a situation where you want to have a huge, roomy sound, but the drums were recorded in like a small, dry room. Easy solution, just add a drum sample. For this kind of situation, you could always add, reverb or compression, but using samples can be a quicker method, could be faster, right? And very often it's a much more consistent sound. So the samples will allow you to be creative with the sonic outcome whilst preserving the original performance by the drummer. Okay, now, number 3, third point. Now, samples also can be used in conjunction with other processing techniques. For example, right, sidechain compression. Right, so for example, you could have a kick drum sample, right, which is very, very consistent. So you can use that, okay, and use that to trigger, right, the key or the sidechain of a compressor. Or another instance where I can think of the use of a sample to trigger effects is you could always take a snare sample to trigger a consistent sounding and very, very even sounding reverb. Now, those samples are not necessarily, right, it could be on a muted channel, right? That channel might not be fed or might not be routed to the bus. It could be just used as a sidechain, right? It could be just used as something to trigger a compressor, the sidechain, or it could be used to trigger an effect, for example, like reverb. Okay, so there's many uses of samples besides just layering or replacing drum sounds. Question 2. Isn't using drum samples cheating? Alright, okay, so that's an interesting question, and yes, right, you have different people out there, right, have incredibly varying opinions on this matter. I just kind of want to share and want to point out with you a few common misconceptions about drum sample replacement. Number 1, samples sound bad. My question to you then, how about using the MIDI keyboard samples? Do they sound bad? Okay, the important thing here, right, is with drum samples, it boils down to drum programming as well, okay? You have to make your samples sound believable by programming, right, and tweaking and adjusting, especially the articulations and, you know, the velocity dynamics. Just simply flattening out, right, your velocity values, putting it 127 all the way, okay, it's gonna obviously make it sound robotic. It's gonna obviously make it sound unreal, okay? Hence, making samples sound bad. Number 2, point 2, samples are for inexperienced engineers. Now, okay, as I mentioned earlier, right, it should not be used to cover up bad recordings, okay, right, unless, okay, sometimes really budgets, you know, maybe they can't afford a good studio, maybe they can't afford, right, maybe the band or the client can't afford a studio, or maybe some other circumstances, right, make it otherwise. But it's basically just a tool, okay? Drum sample replacement is a tool just like any other technique or any other equipment out there to help you achieve a sonic goal, okay? It's not something that's, you know, the professionals, right? The top professional engineers would never do that because they're so skilled and everything. Hey, the top professionals in the business and the industry have been using this technique and method for decades now, right? If we go back to the earliest days of drum sample replacement, the earliest ones, right? If I recall, I read an article, you know, it's was done, right? An early form of sampling, right? Drum sampling was used on Steely Dan's records early back in the day. So look, from the 80s, 90s onwards, right? It's already a very integral sound of modern rock drums, I would say, and even in pop as well. Okay, now obviously when it comes to more organic styles of music like blues, like jazz and all that, you know, I would highly recommend against using samples. Usually we want to keep those as natural as possible, of course. Number 3, samples are cheating, deceiving, okay, right, which is back to your original question. Okay, now here's the thing, like, think about it. Modern recorded music, right? Ever since we started inventing, right, multi-track machines, stereo recording, you know, recording with multiple tracks, effects unit, it always has been about making things sound larger than life, okay? Anytime you edit, anytime you quantize, anytime you tune a vocal, right, or you add reverb, you are, in essence, altering the original performance, and technically, right, you're fooling the listener. Does the vocal, right, sound like it was recorded in a great big hall, like a great big concert hall? Yes, but it was originally recorded in a dry vocal booth. So, is the vocal sung by an actor, okay, let's say in a musical or an animation, right, or a movie or something like that, right? When you hear an actor, right, who you know is not a singer, when they sing, you know, maybe a musical part or a song, wow, it sounds perfectly in tune. How about that? That is thanks to vocal editing. So, well, whether samples are cheating or deceiving, okay, I would argue, right? Otherwise, if you consider that cheating, if you consider that, as part of deceiving the listener, then almost every other process of modern recording, right, or modern music production involves the same thing as well. It involves a form of deception, it involves a form of altering and enhancing what is really recorded in the first place. Right, just to wrap it up, just to sum it up, here are key points to remember, okay? Number one, whenever you want to utilize drum sample replacement, you want to communicate with the client. Now, for me, if I'm working with a band which has a drummer or something like that, okay, now at the start of every project, I will discuss, right, and identify the needs of that project with the client, okay, or with the band. Use some reference tracks, right, of some bands that they like, or maybe how they want the drums to sound. All of this will help you get an idea for what their vision is and of how the drums should sound. This can sometimes have to be compromised, right? For instance, right, maybe they can't get a similar sounding recording space, or they simply don't have a budget. They have to record drums at home in the living room or the band's garage, for example, right? So you need to talk this through with the band. Number two, explain the need for, right, if so required, explain the need for this drum sample replacement and explain the process, okay? Some drummers, okay, because of what they read or what they hear from other people, may be a little bit misinformed as to how bad triggering sounds like, okay? Right? So sit down, help them to understand, right, that sample replacement, right, we are not replacing their playing, we're not replacing their performance, we are keeping and maintaining it, except that we are just helping to enhance it further. Now, lastly, the last point that we should always remember is that a good engineer should always strive and know how to record drums well. But on the other hand, right, also know how and when to employ the tools that can enhance the final product. And in this case, this may include the use of drum samples. Use wisely, use sparingly, okay? Drum sample replacement is nothing more than the tool, right? It's just like any other tool out there. It's just like compression, it's just like EQ, it's like any kind of reverb or effect or any kind of trick or technique. It's nothing more than a means to achieve a sonic end. So hopefully these couple of points which I've shared with you, right, helps you to understand a little bit more about drum sample replacement. Okay, and by the way, as I mentioned earlier on, do check out the tutorial video on drum sample replacement, right, which I put it out. Click on it and check it out, okay, right? If you want to sort of learn and see exactly, right, if you want to see in detail how I actually do drum sample replacement, do check it out. Alright, okay, I'm gonna sign off here, right? Thank you once again for watching this video. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, you want to leave some of your feedback, I would love to hear from you, okay? You can always get in touch with me, not only through the YouTube comments section, but on all my social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, okay? Do check out the rest of the videos. As I mentioned, the tutorial video for drum sample replacement is up on the channel, and many other videos as well. If you found this video informative and interesting, do leave a like, do share it right with your friends, and if you haven't done so, remember, head on down, click subscribe, and click on the notification bell as well. Do consider signing up to become a patron, www.patreon.com/studio2105. Okay, I would really appreciate, right, the assistance. Okay, now as usual, okay, do stay safe. Okay, remember, wash your hands, take care of your health, your personal hygiene, stay happy, stay healthy. Okay, I'll see you again soon in the next video. Happy recording and mixing. Bye.